Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here, and of course, I'm joined as always by my co-hosts Jimmy Marion and Darian Smith. Fellas, it is officially time to go ahead and start our preview. As today, we preview the 2023 UAB football offense, and next week we will be previewing the defense and special teams. And after that, guys, it's game week. So exciting times. But before we get started, Darian, I know you were able to get out to the facility this past Saturday as former players, football players were able to kind of take part in, a scrimmage and also just, fellowshipping with each other. Can you talk a little bit about that experience, Darian, that you had with just hanging out with former players and just all getting together and kind of some of them meeting Trent Dilfer for the first time?
Yeah, first of all, it was always good to get back and see my brothers. Some was coming from Nashville, from Phoenix, wherever they was coming from, all over, young and old. But we've been doing this for a while, the football alumni. So I know I'm very acquainted with a lot of them, no matter their age. So it's a real brotherhood. But secondly, shout out to Trent and the staff. They are so open. There's no secrets, really. Of course, the things that they need to be tight-lipped about, they are. But they are transparent. They are open books. They love to talk about what they're trying to accomplish, and they don't make it any secrets. And as an alumni, as a former player, it felt really good to feel like, hey, we got some inside info. The scrimmage was really nice. We'll get into it more as we do a breakdown. But hey, I can say this much: we look a lot better than from the spring, from what we saw, John, to that scrimmage yesterday. Night and day difference. Even a lot of the players, they've transformed their bodies over the summer so much. Just seeing a guy like Dallas Payne at tight end, totally different looking guy. Seeing some of the guys that came in earlier, like Keldon Johnson, and man, just seeing him out, I'm like, dude, this dude is big. And we are a lot more faster. I can say that much, like a collective team speed. We have a lot of team speed out there, and we really get to the ball offensively and defensively. And yeah, I think you guys are gonna like the breakdown that we'll have. Of course, we can't say everything here, but yeah, we'll get into specific players and whatever as we get into it.
Yeah, exciting to hear that, Darian. And I got to think too, that credit to Lyle Henley, the strength staff, and also just the nutrition. With the Trent Dilfer, Cole Peterson, just that they have kind of put in place, and just watching practice some these last couple weeks during fall camp, the guys really do look better, compared to where they were in the spring, and that's just got to be a testament to this staff and nutrition that they have put in place, all spring, all summer, and now fall. Like, it's got to transform their bodies, and again, it makes you think, Darian, like, what if they had that back when you played?
Yeah, it's instead of like a dentist office and muscle milk. It'd have been good to have all of the. They are focused on the player. They have plans set up for each player very specifically, and Cole does a wonderful job of stocking, making sure they're stocked up fully on whatever they need, from whatever hydration to protein, whatever they need. Like, he makes sure he has it in, and they go to town for whatever specific plan. If it's losing weight, if it's toning up, whatever you need to do, man, and they can transform you. Give him 4 months with Lyle Henley in his program, and you will look like a totally different guy. It was amazing to see a lot of those players and see. I'm like, God, that's the same guy we just saw a couple months ago. This dude look like a grown man. Listen, it's only one Isaiah Jacobs, but everybody else they're getting up there. They're getting up there.
Love it. Yeah, I got to talk to Lyle or Cole or somebody and try to get me in shape because I need to lose about 30 more pounds. So, or maybe hey, I'll talk to Trent because Trent's looking better himself. You know,
Yeah, look at Slim. Look at Slim.
Steve and I talked to him the first day out on fall camp, and he said he had lost 36 pounds. So, yeah, shout out to Trent too. But Jimmy, you ready to break down some offense today?
Let's do it, man.
All right, let's rock and roll. And we are going to start with the big nasties up front with the offensive line. And this is a position group that UAB fans have kind of held a question mark, at least since last year ended. Losing all that starting experience from last year's team. Now you do have a couple guys right now that have a little starting experience, but this is probably the question mark on the offense, at least heading into the 2023 season. And Darian, do you want to kind of start us out by maybe just talking about like what you saw at the scrimmage this past Saturday out of the O line?
Yeah, I'm gonna do well. I'm gonna go about it this way, Jimmy, John. If it's any like specific questions, we can start from there, and then we can just work. We kind of reverse our way out of it.
Darren, I want to talk about left guard, man. I feel like it's a position that we've talked about throughout the summer. Obviously, just in my personal opinion, I feel relatively certain about who we'll see at 4 out of the 5 positions. We've heard some good things about Luke Jones throughout fall camp thus far, but what was your kind of overall impression of that left guard position yesterday?
Especially with the ones we were really solid. Well, ones and twos, we were really solid. We did a lot of mixing and matching, and I think they were trying to, just for certain scenarios to see like if a guy went down here, there's something what you're supposed to do. But I remember saying, man, Luke looks solid. Luke looks solid. Like I honestly, of course it was players, and you got guys like Fish. That's Fish. Tyreek Howard looks like he's ready to be dominant. You kind of do you remember when we had who we had on the inside? What's the I always forget names, but
An older player?
We had Anthony Rush
Yeah.
next to Marino, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting the feels because Tyreek Howard, he's really good. He's really coming to his own, and it kind of gives me that feel that Marino Rush feel with the two that we have in the middle. But so of course our interior linemen had their hands full dealing with those guys. But Luke Jones was really solid. I can't really remember like any mistakes that he was making at that left guard position. I came away confident in Luke.
That's good to hear. I mean, and in practice, you do kind of see them working Luke Jones a lot at the left guard position. But I mean, let's face it, we still got 2 more weeks. UAB has 2 more weeks of fall camp to get ready for the NCAA game. So I mean, I think they're still trying to figure things out. To solidify the first offensive line. But I mean, you've got a guy like Brennan Moran coming in, from Sioux Falls that we've talked about on the Patreon before. I mean, that could be a guy that could, come into the mix. Also like a Jalen Nettles. But
And
I mean,
and John, I was able to ask about Brennan, and he was a guy, they was mixing him in, but he was still learning. He wasn't with the team in the spring or the summer, so he was still learning the system and what was going on. So and he was in there, but he was still in there ripping it out. He was, he was in there getting it in. So yeah, I came away confident. Now Trent has mentioned it before, and it is true. They do need to continue to work on their stamina. They do need to continue to get in game shape, but they have plenty of time to do that. But that is one thing. If you want to get a clear picture of this offensive line, once they get all the way in game shape, then we'll know exactly 100% what we have. But I still left feeling confident. And I think more revelation has to come along in terms of depth. I think there's still some revelation to go there. But as far as what we're starting off with, I'm very confident. They're very versatile. It's a very athletic group. I do wonder what it's going to look like once we get on that field and we start going against AAC competition. where do we really stand? That's when we're going to really see where we stand. And but yeah, I'm confident.
Hey, Darren, kind of like some deep cuts here, but we talked about some of the freshman offensive line that we brought in, whether it be in January or since then. And I'm just curious, you know, we wouldn't expect necessarily for any of the true freshmen to make an impact right away, but was there any of the true freshmen that we brought in, whether at the tackle or the guard positions, that you kind of were intrigued by their build or just, their early contributions here in fall camp?
I can say this much: we got some big boys. Our freshmen were big, but they were still guys that you can tell that it's different for offensive linemen. When you're getting used to the physicality, when you're getting used to the grind, skill players, they can come in. And we'll talk about a specific skill player that's a freshman, but they can come in and a lot of times they can go right away. But for an offensive lineman, on top of the mental workload that you have, it's a physical development that you undergo too. And I think just the grind of it, you got to get used to. So those guys, you can tell they were usually going with the threes and fours, but they are huge. Like the Delano Townsend
Mm-hmm.
and our boy Jordan Hall, huge. Like you got guys like Logan Moore. Logan Moore, he reminds me of a lot of Chris Hubbard with his body style. He's like looks like he's about 270, but a good 6'5", but it's a chiseled 270. You give all of those guys gonna need a red shirt year. They're not gonna play this year. They're young unless you get into game 6 or so, and it's like they develop so much. But a lot of those young guys I can see are developing. I'm excited for them in their future, but I wouldn't expect to see them on the field right now. But next year, you can tell one or two of those guys will break into the mix.
And Darian, I've got a question. So, kind of for the offensive line, can you just tell the listeners the importance of kind of shuffling guys around, like maybe a guard playing tackle some, and a tackle, and vice versa, playing some guard some during camp? And is that just them trying to be, versatile and in case something happens during the year, or what would you tell the listeners about the importance of shuffling around?
Yeah, in case something happens, then somebody goes down, you still want to have the best five combination. So just because if Trey Badowski goes down at right tackle, you just don't want whoever slotted to be the backup right tackle on a depth chart to be there. You want the best five guys. So maybe you can move somebody over. Maybe you can move, you know, maybe we have a better backup left tackle. Maybe Gunter is pretty solid at left tackle. Maybe move Parker over to right tackle and slide Gunter to left tackle. You can always move guys around to see who's the best five combination to have out there, not just going by a depth chart. And then also, secondly, it's important for the players and their NFL. Um, you want to be able to show to the scouts that you have this versatility to you, because it's hard to make NFL teams. But if you can play center, guard, and tackle, and you can do it all decently, trust me, your prospects of joining the team go up a lot. So you want to be able to showcase that ability as well. So I think it's personally better for the player, and it's also better for the team to know like what are the best combinations if a certain position go down.
And do we want to just guess, or Jimmy, if you had to pick right now, who what would be your starting five for the offensive line if you had to guess?
Well, based on everything we know at this point in time and what we've read, for me personally, I would project that you would have Jones at left guard, Wilson at center, Yates at right guard, Podolsky at right tackle, and Parker at left. Is that fair to say?
Sounds good to me. I mean,
Uh,
that'd probably be my guess as well.
the caveat though would be Darren was talking about earlier with Brennan Moran. He's someone that I've certainly got my eyes on to see how he progresses. That makes a lot of sense to me, Darren, that he would be, catching up on the playbook and what the coaching staff expects from that position. So I would think that when you talk about position battles, that would certainly be one that I'm keeping an eye on, is whether Luke Jones can take that momentum that he's had from spring camp and continue forward and hold on to that starting position, or if that's a place where, whether maybe he doesn't have as fast of a start in game 1 or 2. That's something I would monitor, not just going into game 1, but throughout the season if Moran can jump in there in that starting 5.
I can say this much, Jimmy. I came away with thinking that Luke probably had the least amount of mistakes or, getting beat than probably anybody else, maybe. But I came in like really, really impressed, and to me, it seemed as if Luke has a firm grasp on that left guard spot.
I got one more deep cut question. Are you able to get like an idea, Darren, when you're watching here early on? Like, we talk about pre-snap penalties in the last few years under the previous staff, holding, back 10 yards, false starts. Are you able to get an idea here early on, like if that looks like an improvement, or is it going to just take some
It
more time?
it looks so much better, but we have a totally different offense. I honestly think that, probably because of the ask. Like I think we really leaned on our offensive line schematically in the past. So I think that put a lot of pressure on them, and we had a lot of holding calls. We had some false starts here and there. You're gonna have a false start every single game you go to. But as far as the egregious penalties and at the rate that we were getting them, night and day, night and day. Even talking to some of the players on the offensive line, they say that they feel like they've gotten the IQ, like it's a different offense, so they feel like it's you use more of your IQ. They feel smarter. I know it sounds weird, but it's like I guess it's like taking a different class and getting something out of it if you're just going to school. But they feel smarter. They feel better. And I just think the ask is not as much as it used to be. Because we ran the ball and we ran it in a lot of different type of ways, especially with that outside zone. And that outside zone can cause you to be handsy. So but we have it's totally different now, and I think the ask is different, and the penalties seem like it was cut in half.
Well, that's definitely good to hear. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and transition into the quarterback position. And we're halfway through camp, and obviously Zeno is going to be your starting quarterback. I mean, I know there's no official word, but Zeno has looked good in practices, and he looked good in the spring. Can you, Darian? I know we don't want you to get into specifics, but did you come away impressed with Jacob Zeno out of the first scrimmage?
You know what I came away more so impressed with Jacob Zeno is that he's comfortable. Like I'm not even talking about like the on field play. I'm just talking about off the field, how he talks, how he's acting, how he's communicating. He knows he's the leader. It's the difference between being like, okay, I have to be the leader, like I have to step into this role. It's my time versus, oh, I am that. Like he's just plain talking, like the way he's communicating with the team and the way guys are receptive to him. He is that's who he is, and you can tell that the team has embraced him in that role. So as a leader, it was the play on the field was defense was making plays, offense made plays. I mean, I didn't see him throw any egregious passes or anything like that. So I was happy with that. I just as a leadership aspect, I can tell when things get down or it gets rough. I have confidence that the team will still believe in him, and he carried himself that way with that confidence. So I was happy. I was really happy with that.
That's definitely good to hear, and I see the same out of Zeno. He very confident, kind of poised. It just looks more comfortable, at least in practice, and he carries himself well. Out of the other quarterbacks, And for this podcast, we're not going to go into stats, what Zeno's stats were last year, but we all know that the high point of last year was that UTSA game, and we kind of expect more of that with hopefully this year's offense compared to last year's offense. But with the battle for the number 2, do we think that maybe Landry Liddy might have locked that up at least
Hey,
now? Or
I was waiting on Jimmy to get to this one because I know there's something that we talked about on the Patreon, huh?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That was going to be my question. Was we dove into this 2 weeks ago? We talked about that second spot and even the third spot. So kind of what were your thoughts, Darren, on that?
So check out the Patreon, and y'all can go back and y'all can look at what we talked about that second spot and our concerns with the depth at quarterback. But I'm here to tell you, Landry Liddy was throwing dimes. Like I remember the spring game. It was so inconsistent. It was like up and down. He was new to the team. It was up and down, blah
yeah,
blah blah. It was a lot of up and down play, and we was like, I don't know about the depth. Hey, he looked good in this. I'm gonna be real. He looked good in this scrimmage. I came away like, all right, never mind. I feel confident. If something was to happen, because now we got to remember this guy has as a true freshman, he has actual game starts under his belt already. Okay, so now we take that, we give him the spring and the summer. We come to camp, and he seemed a lot more comfortable. I didn't see any really, maybe one or two bad throws, but out of how many? Like, he threw so many, and he threw a lot of bombs, man. He threw a lot of good passes. I am really good with that. I was even impressed with Harrison Parker at the third spot. He's not a big guy at all, but he had like a confidence to him, a command to him. If he threw a bad pass, he was already looking at the sideline getting the next play. I'm like, look at Harrison Parker out there. I was impressed with him. I was like, I feel a lot better. Man, these guys have improved so much from the spring into camp, physically as their body and mentally learning the playbook. The coaching staff has really did a good job, and the strength staff.
and I mean, people forget, Landry Liddy, his senior year of high school. I mean, he was Louisiana Player of the Year. So I mean, this guy has the talent. But that is, great to hear what you saw out of that first scrimmage, Darian. To get more confident with him passing the ball. And people forget last year. He really had the really good game for La Tech at FIU where he threw for 264 yards. And I mean, he has shown glimpses now, and we've also talked about how god awful that offensive line last year was for Louisiana Tech. And I mean, honestly, it's him coming in, trying to get comfortable with the system, but also just saying, hey, he's not going to have to run for his life every play like he was used to doing, at least at Louisiana Tech. So great to
Yeah,
hear. And
correct. And I think our offensive line did a good job of pass block. Well, we got some dogs on the D line, but so we had some guys that was giving them fits, but yeah, I think our O line will be way better than what Tech was that year.
good. And also just two other guys to mention in the. Oh, I'm sorry, Jimmy. You go ahead.
No, I think that's exactly where you were going. I was just curious. We talked a little bit about Trace Campbell prior as well. What were some of your takeaways when you look at his performance in the spring game versus the scrimmage, Darren?
Trace was decent. I still think Trace is more of a kind of a wildcat guy. Because he has this size speed blend, and that's honestly it's kind of you don't want that just sitting down. But I don't know if I want it utilized as a full-time quarterback. I think he's a package kind of guy. That's just my opinion.
And also, I was just going to mention Carter Putt too. That might be somebody to watch for battling for that the position for the quarterback. But we all know, right now Jacob Zeno is going to be the starting quarterback. And Jimmy too. You had sent us that article a while back from the Chris Hummer at 247 Sports, and I mean, in that article, Trent, high praise out of Jacob Zeno, correct?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because Trent's got high expectations for Zeno. So in that article, he talked about having the anticipation of Zeno having all-American caliber season in 2023. And just so you guys know, when you think about all-American caliber season, if you look at in 2022, the Associated Press QB All-Americans, third team was Hendon Hooker, who threw for just over 3,000 yards, had 27 touchdowns, 2 picks, ran for 430 yards and 5 TDs. And you got Max Duggan at TCU, who threw for 3,700 yards, had 32 touchdowns, 8 picks, and Caleb Williams. We don't have to say his stats. So it's like, there's extremely high expectations, and why shouldn't there be with someone that's got the pedigree that Trent Dilfer does, in his experience, playing and coaching the quarterback position. So hopefully, to your point, John, we're going to see a lot more of those UTSA performances from Zeno this upcoming season.
Now we can transition to the skill positions, and we talked a little bit about the O-line and the quarterbacks, but guys, these next two, well, three if you want to separate wide receivers and tight ends, but running backs and wide receiving room. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this might be the deepest UAB has ever been at both of those positions. Darian, but would you can you push back a little, or would you agree?
So we're gonna go and I want to do the whole question route, and we're gonna reverse it. We're gonna reverse engineer this thing going out because I'm excited about these groups. So Jimmy, John, whatever questions, and we'll just go from there.
Darian, first question. Who would win in an arm wrestling battle between Isaiah Jacobs and Demetrius Battle?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's a tough one. Battle is big. Like, Battle is a big guy.
That's 8-ball, man. He's a huge guy. Yeah.
He's huge. But Jacobs looks like a Greek statue. So I'm gonna have to go with the guy that looks like a Greek statue.
Could John, with a tummy full of candy corn, compete with either?
No.
Hey, he didn't have a question.
It was already no. Like, candy corn.
You just heard candy corn and said no. That's just your gut instinct. But guys, like, this is crazy. Like, Dwayne McBride is not on this team anymore, and we're sitting here talking about the running backs, and obviously, Skull's going to be your number one, and then here we are with Isaiah Jacobs. We've got 8-ball, Demetrius Battle. We've got Curry. We've got Beebe, Witherspoon. I mean, my goodness, with Henley Brigham, like the running backs coach, I mean, how do you get them all on the field?
and that's what I was wondering, like how, like
it's a good problem to have.
Right. But Jimmy, did you have a question that you was about to ask?
Yeah, that was going to be my thought as well, as we talk about all the talent in the running back room and what I'm accustomed to seeing, what we're accustomed to seeing is really like a two-headed monster approach in recent years, right? And so, the thought would be, what would be the anticipation here is that we're truly going to utilize 3-4 running backs. I know that we've got a lot of versatility in that room, but what's your thoughts there? And do you think that that's going to be the reality? Is that yes, we're going to see, whether it be 3 or 4 running backs in these games, or that you're truly going to have 2 guys reveal themselves more in like the traditional way that we've seen in recent years? What are kind of your early thoughts on that situation?
I do think all these guys do deserve getting carries here and there, and just we can maybe put them in positions that they are better at. So maybe if a guy's going to shift out as receiver, maybe there's going to be more Skull and Taven Curry. But, I mean, if you running trap plays, you getting downfield, Isaiah Jacobs, he's lived up to the hype. I asked coaches, I asked players, and they said Jacobs has been everything we thought plus more. And then going out there and seeing them run, it's the same deal. Asking the players, they like, oh, yeah, he's for real. So I'm like, okay, we got him. Seeing Lee Beebe, he looks good. Like, he is solid. I remember I turned to one of the players. I was like, man, Lee looks a lot bigger than what I thought he was. Like, I think he's listed at 210. He is really that. It's a solid 210. Looks like a little kid in the face, but he is really, really running. He's getting downhill. Like he is. He had a couple runs where get loose, bam, knocking the guy helmet back, boom. Taven Curry, the same smooth looking catching passes, getting down like everybody. Lee Witherspoon, he looked good. I think we find a way. Of course, Skull is going to be your featured back, but Isaiah Jacobs deserves to be a featured back as well. And listening to the Patreon, John had a really really good interview with both of those guys. But with Isaiah Jacobs, he said he felt like he was a 3-down back. I agree, I do. So it's a good problem to have. I think you do find a way to get Taven Curry and Lee Beebe, at least get them, 3 touches a game. At least, Man, maybe that's asking too much. I try to get Witherspoon a touch or two. Because he's deserving as well. So
Right.
and then the rest of the touches, I don't know, man. Like you still got 8 ball. I would probably use him in goal line packages. Maybe, because it's just not enough touches to go around. But I do feel like Skull and Jacobs, it's tough because Curry and BB deserve carries. I like to see those guys run. So I don't know. That's a problem for Trent and Alex. They're gonna have to figure it out.
And let's be honest, like I feel very confident saying this. I mean, the days of Debo getting 25 to 30 carries a game, I don't think they're going to do that for Skull. Like with the weapons that they have in this running back room, I think they will be able to distribute the carries amongst that group, those 5, 6 guys, and also to expect them to be, involved kind of in the passing game as well. And that's, something that I talked with Skull, again, patreon.com/blazerpod. I talked with Skull and Jacobs, and that's something both of them said, they're excited to get involved, not to say they weren't involved at all in the passing game in previous years, or Skull, but, get a little more involved and, be able to showcase their ability more with this multiple offense that Alex Mortensen and Trent Dilfer are trying to apply with UAB this year. So, hey, like we said, it's a good problem to have. Henley Brigham, with those guys, but even like a Lee Witherspoon, Darren, you talked about him. He shows flashes of speed and good ball carrying ability. So this is a stable of guys that UAB can utilize this year, and they don't have to just solely rely on Debo 30-35 times a game.
It's crazy to think if Skull, Jacobs, and Curry went down, we still got BB, Witherspoon, and Battle. We still are 3 deep there. And it's easily the deepest that we've ever been. It's just in terms of sheer numbers. I ain't talking top end quality because that's yet to be proved on the field. But as far as like the amount of guys that can touch and they can actually score and do something with it, oh, most definitely the deepest we've ever been. It's not even close.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about another position group, the wide receiver room. I mean, this this might be the deepest that UAB's wide receiver room has been as well. Plenty of guys that can have the playmaking abilities in open space to kind of spread out this offense. And I mean, I think we have to kind of start with Tayshawn Palmer, bringing the experience into this year. And guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we expect Palmer to kind of have a breakout year and to not necessarily do what Shropshire did the last couple years? I mean, because this is going to be, a little different of an offense. But, I mean, wouldn't you guys say that expect big numbers out of him this year with this offense?
Go ahead, Jimmy. You got it.
Yeah, man. I'm expecting big things from T-Palm for sure. So I still can recall watching JUCO tape of him his last year in JUCO and seeing him lead junior college in yards per catch and catching touchdowns left and right, and he showed some flashes here this past year too. So he's certainly someone that I've got my eye on, and he's had a lot of good thoughts shared about him and his performances thus far in fall camp. But curious, Darian, did your thoughts align with just the expectations on T-Palm and what you saw during the scrimmage?
Yeah, T-Palm is T-Palm. I don't think he was able to have too many opportunities, but that's because of what the defense was giving the offense. But as far as what we're used to seeing out of him, he looks like that guy. And he's another guy that off the field, you can tell he knows. Like he seems so comfortable. And so as far as like play wise, like how many plays he was able to make, I think I only saw him make like 2 catches or so, like normal catches. But that's because of how the defense was playing him. But as far as like all of the mouths we have to feed on the listen, man, John, like Jimmy, we got a lot of weapons, and I don't think nobody is happier about the offense being diverse than the guys in the wide receiver room that we have, and where I see us using so many different plays just to get our guys the ball. We have so many weapons, like from TJ Jones to Samario Rudolph to T Palm to Fred Farrion, which he had a really, really nice scrimmage. Fred Farrion was catching nice, like he looks like he's really taking the next step. He was out there running with the ones. Fred Farrion was. I think he has a tight grip on that because the dude looked amazing out there. I think the UAB football account, they tweeted out one of his highlight catches out there. The guy was, they didn't even put the best one out there, man. It was a ball thrown, and it kind of, imagine if you're running a wheel route and it's if the ball, you're expecting the ball to be placed on the inside, but it ends up being on the opposite shoulder on the outside. He full extension laid out, caught it over the opposite shoulder. I remember, like, ain't no way he caught the ball, just opposite shoulder, full extension. I was like, yeah, he's ready. And I think he made a play like that, like on DMAC or something like that. It was good. I'm like, yeah, he's ready. He's a starter.
And Fred was someone when he caught that touchdown at WKU. I thought that was going to be his breakout moment, right? Because he had a few catches before that were critical, like on third down or big time catches, but didn't have the volume. And I thought that was going to be his breakout. I'm not quite sure that necessarily happened after the WKU game. So I'm pleased to hear that he's really showing out and reaching some of that potential here. And even the previous staff, I don't know if y'all remember, but there were some really high thoughts on Fred Farrior too. So that's just great to hear that he's really progressing.
Yeah, and I think that, just by offensively, the design, schematically, it was just hard to have a second or a third wide receiver get those touches and be impactful in our offense. That's just not how we were built.
I mean, and let's be honest too, and I don't mind saying this, but the previous offense, it was Debo outside zone a lot, and then post route, throw it to Shropshire, and that's basically what it was. I mean,
right.
And it worked for UAB. Sometimes, and but if you're a guy like Fred Farrior, if you're a guy like Samario Rudolph or Malachi Holt Bennett, TJ Jones, I mean, you've got to be excited, having an offensive coordinator like Alex Mortensen and being able to kind of be a little more diverse and more things that you can showcase out of your ability.
Right, exactly. And Jimmy, you had a couple more questions at receiver.
Yeah, I got 2 questions. One, John just mentioned a name here, but I'm curious what your thoughts were on 2, P5 transfers that we brought in. One being Brandon Buckhalter from Ole Miss, big physical downfield threat. He came in a little bit later, and then you have one that I know we're all excited to see return back to Birmingham, Malachi Holt Bennett after 2 years at Indiana. And I remember at 205 sign day event, they were talking about him having the potential to be a true X, in this offense. So just kind of, did you have any early observations of those two guys coming in?
Yeah, I kind of wonder where Hope Bennett is gonna where he's gonna get placed in him and Worsham. Kind of wonder where they are going to be placed in it, because we have so many mouths to feed, and we have so many guys. Just it's revelations happening all over the place. So I'm still it's still out on them. Like I'm not really sure how much of a grasp. I did see some flashes. I wasn't able to see too much from Hope Bennett, admittedly, but I was able to see stuff from Worsham. So and they were doing this against a stable of good DBs, like um, guys like BJ Mays is like a grown man. I didn't know he was that big. Like I was like, who's this big dude with the dreads playing outside corner out here, bro? Like this dude, he got number one on, like him and Desmond Little and Kobe Dempsey all had number one on. They fighting for that number, but man, BJ Mays looked like an NFL corner. Like the dude is big, and him and like Ray Thornton out there. I was like, ooh, we got some dogs back here. And
See, and that's to preview next week's show when we talk about the defense. You saying that, Darian, and, knowing what we have in the secondary and out of UAB's DBs, like that makes you feel even more, or it makes you feel even better about this wide receiving core.
Exactly. And then what was the other question? It was about Hope Bennett and who was the Bokalter. Yeah, he was really able to flash. You can tell that. I talked to some of the staff, and he was, he's still learning since he got there. But first of all, he's big. Second of all, he's fast. And when he was able to mentally play fast, he was able to catch the ball. I saw him pirouette, break some tackles. I was like, oh, there it is. That's why they really wanted this guy. So when he gets caught up to speed, this is going to be another weapon. But I cannot leave the pod without talking about Amari Thomas.
That was going to be my next question, Darian. I want to preface it by saying this, because there's another guy I want to package here real quick with this, is that there's two guys that are younger, both from the state of Alabama, one of which is Hooks, who briefly entered the transfer portal, and then we were able to convince to come back and have an opportunity to play a bigger role in this offense. And then Thomas, who had an offer from Virginia, and Virginia fans were certainly want to plug him out of the Birmingham area, but we were able to keep him home as well. So although they're younger, they don't have a lot of experience. Kind of, what are your thoughts on those guys? I know there's certainly reason to be excited.
If you want to talk about the three receivers that flashed the most, we talked about one in Fred Farrier, but Thomas and Hooks, like Strap is what they call Hooks. The dude is a weapon. Like, we got to get him the ball. We have to get Amari Thomas the ball. He is going to play. I know we got a lot of older guys. We got all that. Listen, the dude is going to play. I'm telling you, he was just that good. I don't see why would you not play him just because, oh yeah, we got these others. From what I saw, I'm like, nah. True freshman, I don't care. I don't care, because he made a lot of highlight plays. He scored a couple of touchdowns out there. And from what I felt like Mortensen was lining him up saying, I'm going to get him the ball. I think he wanted to get Amari Thomas the ball. I also think he wanted to get Strap Hooks the ball, because those guys were getting the ball and they were making plays, whether it's in the air contesting, whether it's burning people down the field, whether it's getting the ball on a speed sweep. Those two guys really, really impressed me, and I'm excited to see them play. I'm excited about the amount of weapons that we have. And I knew that this was the part I was waiting to get to, because those two receivers right there, those two young guys, I just was really happy for our future. And hopefully we can keep raising NIL money so we can retain those guys because they are going to be important as we move on.
Definitely. And before we wrap up, I definitely want us to talk about the tight end position at UAB for this year. Obviously, having whether it's Dallas Payne, who you mentioned earlier in the pod, Darian, but also a Bryce Damus, who showed flashes last year as well. Anything kind of pop off to you about the tight end position out of the first scrimmage or what you saw?
We're stable. We have nothing to worry about. I think Bryce Damus has a really good grasp there. But I've been hearing a lot about Dallas Payne but he wasn't able to practice. I think he was just dinged up a little bit, gold jersey on. But as far as how he looked, his body, I was like, okay, I get it. So those two guys I expect. And JC Sylvie, he looks big and like he's ready to go. Terrell McDonald, he caught a couple passes out there. But I do think Bryce and Dallas are the guys that we're going to be looking at, along with JC probably being the third guy there. But we look very stable, and it's so many mouths to feed. It's so many, like skill player wise. I don't think if we add the running backs in with it, I don't think we've been this explosive ever. But so it's all about just gelling at this point. It's one thing to have the talent, but it's another thing to be able to use the talent correctly and cohesively. So I think that's where we're at now.
I think UAB fans are, like Jimmy said in the chat, I think UAB fans are going to love this episode. I think UAB fans should be the most excited that they've been maybe ever, or at least in a long time, out of hearing these skill position groups and the talent that UAB has. But if you like the episode, hit the follow or subscribe button, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to us, so you don't miss any future episodes of the Blazer Victory podcast. Also, if you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/blazerpod, and there you will find exclusive episodes, interviews, more content from the Blazer Victory podcast. Again, and it's just $5 a month. Or if you want to save some money, you can join the annual membership and you save 10%. But again, that helps support us and our continued coverage here at Blazer Victory of UAB Athletics.
And hey, John, I'll say this to cap it off. I think the ceiling of whatever record prediction, let's say offensively at least, the ceiling for them is going to be what Jacob Zeno and quarterback is going to be able to do, and what our offensive line is going to be able to do. Will they gel, and will they be able to open up the playbook? If those two groups, if he has the All-American season that Trent wants him to have, that means that the offensive line really did its thing. We're going to be competing for an AAC title. If those guys aren't if the line is not good and we can't handle it, then I don't know where we're going to be. But those two groups really controlled a lot this year.
Next week, we'll be back to preview the defense and special teams. But Jimmy, you want to go ahead and close us out for today?
Blazer Nation, just blaze.